Welcome to Eggs, the podcast, featuring the best and brightest minds in business leadership, entrepreneurship, and technology. Today, we have special guest Isaac Hetzroni, founder of Imprint Genius, a sourcing company that was named the #1 fastest growing custom merch distributor of the entire industry in 2020. Isaac's lifelong passion for manufacturing and global sourcing has taken him on a journey around the world. From tea in Sri Lanka to jewelry in Thailand, his knowledge and experience have helped businesses source outside of just China and have helped grow economies that just need a bit more visibility to break into the world. In this episode, we'll dive into Isaac's journey and learn about his global guide and lessons for sourcing products. Please join us in welcoming to the show, Isaac Hetzroni. Hey, Isaac, how are you, man? Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thrilled to have you.
Appreciate it. Why don't you give us a little quick background on who you are and how you got into what you do?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Isaac Hetzroni. Again, I run Imprint Genius. I also run a blog called The Sourcing Guy, where I teach people about product sourcing, how I got into the whole kind of space. I started my company in my freshman dorm room. It was about 7 years ago. So it's been a definitely interesting journey getting here. And I kind of grew up within product sourcing and manufacturing. Both sides of my family owned factories. On my mom's side, we had a small apparel factory in Toronto. On my dad's side, he owns an electronics factory in China. So ever since I was a little kid, always, being in the industry really helped me, gain a passion for manufacturing, gave me a really strong understanding about global supply chain and production, and allowed me to have a really strong base and look at product sourcing from a slightly different lens.
Love it.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Well, and I mean, obviously it's a leg up to have sort of entrepreneurial parents, or have folks that are in this industry. And not everybody has that. So but also I think there's this thing that can happen where your parents do a thing, you get exposed to this thing, and so you just want nothing to do with it. So what was your experience like growing up with parents that were both doing this sort of thing? And, how did you find that it sort of fit for you?
Yeah, well, I think that my parents were always very supportive of, for me, to be an entrepreneur. And from a young age, I would always have these different companies through middle school, high school, probably had 4 or 5 different businesses. And I realized that I didn't love what my dad was manufacturing, right? He was manufacturing complex electronics. It seemed, not something I didn't want to go, because that's the original plan, right? Okay, dad's going to pass down the factory to me. I'm going to go move to China and run a factory. That's not what I want to do. But I realized I really loved, seeing products being created. I loved being that middleman, managing production. I loved e-commerce as well. And I decided, why not, instead of just fighting against the family, using what I've learned, since I was a little kid and building something for myself.
Can you tell us about the first iteration? How you started it in your dorm room? I mean, what products were you selling? How did you acquire those products? And how did you sell them?
Yeah, for sure. So ever since middle school, I was always just flipping different gadgets I would find or products, whether it was, fake Beats by Dre headphones or hats or G-Shocks. I would go find factories in China, fill up a backpack and sell them through the middle school. But then when I came to college, I was kind of past that little phase of my life where I thought it was. And I brought this little cell phone fan that plugs into your phone out to a party because I was in Gainesville, Florida. It's super hot during the summertime. And all these people surrounded me. They're like, "Oh my God, where did you get that? It's such a cool product." And I was just showing people the AliExpress link where you can just order one, right? And eventually I was like, okay, screw it. I sell them, and I started telling people that I sold the product and I had a little business, and I kind of made up on the spot. I ordered 100 and I started bringing them to parties and just kind of selling them because there was such a big need with rush coming up for sororities. And then started picking up steam, and I built, long story short, in a few months, built a massive company selling these cell phone fans. And we were bringing in, thousands of them, selling different campuses, doing bulk, doing e-commerce. And a bunch of people thought I invented the cell phone fan, and I was really just importing this little gadget. Just people hadn't seen it yet. Then we started getting requests for custom ones, and people started using it as a promotional product. And then I started essentially a promotional products company, all focused on unique, direct sourced promotional products that weren't in the industry. So you could go to your regular promo company for your basic stuff, but you want something really cool, you come to us. And that was kind of like how I started in the space. And then was able to use this foundation of direct sourcing and use, the lack of understanding of the industry and going into the industry without having that, like, this is how it's supposed to be done. I was able to build a very unique kind of business within our space and continually try to, push the barrier and innovate in a space that has, 20,000 promotional box distributors.
Yeah, no, it's really an interesting space. Like as a design agency, like we obviously design a lot of things that end up becoming promotional products for different clients. And I've noticed over the last few years, the problems have been becoming even more and more challenging. This idea of how do we find the thing that's unique or exclusive, right? Because everybody's done a stress ball, everybody's done a cool pen, all that stuff. Sorry, I have a fly attacking me right now. So we're doing, all these kind of standard products, right? And then I have these clients come to me and they're like, oh, well, we want something new or interesting. And you go to these, I guess sort of run of the mill suppliers or the traditional suppliers. And, I don't know. Now it's a Yeti instead of like a drink cup instead of, some other kind of brand of tumbler or something. Like, things have iterated and gotten better, but they're not like leaps and bounds better. So I think it's a really cool narrow niche that you discovered, this idea of trying to find the coolest or the best things. How have you noticed or have you seen people adopting these kinds of ideas? Because it seems like there's a demand for it. People are looking for these new interesting items. But are you having any trouble getting people to kind of, I guess, come over to this way of doing business?
Yeah, so we try to innovate a lot of different ways within the industry, and it's difficult, like explaining that there's better ways to do X, Y, and Z within merchandising, especially people have been doing it they've been head of marketing at whatever company for 20 years and they've been doing the swag a certain way. But I think as more of the younger generation is coming in and they're expecting more choice, faster turnarounds a lot of times, better like overall buying experience, distribution experience, and more retail grade product. The buyers are changing, and we're getting more and more requests for, just more unique product that really stands out, that feels more like a brand. A great example is if you look at like any fast food chain, they're all coming out with high end retail grade like merch lines, and it's so Taco Bell isn't launching stress balls or handing out stress balls anymore. They're making like full jumpsuits, right, that are actually cool. And I think that's moving the whole industry. The whole industry is moving in that direction.
I don't know if I'd be caught dead wearing a jumpsuit by Taco Bell. And no offense,
negative, Mike.
You know what
You're
I
so
mean?
negative, Mike. It could be your look. You just don't even know.
Trust me, Mike. But look up the Taco Bell new merch line, guys, and you will be very surprised by how well, a lot of these brands are designing their it looks like something out of a cool streetwear store.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I don't know that particular one, the jumpsuit, but like you've seen like the Travis Scott collaborations with McDonald's and stuff like that, where they roll out all this Cactus Jack gear. And, it's clear that they're making a move that way. And I think one of the things that's happening is I think the old days of like sort of the stress ball and the pen and stuff like that, the concept was, hey, let's just get something almost like a business card kind of model, right? Like let's get a thing in somebody's hand and that's that. Like, maybe they'll call us, maybe they'll think of us, maybe they'll leave it on their desk. But if they throw away, like, no harm, like, it was just kind of a cheap little giveaway, but there wasn't this value put on people. And now it seems like there's a leveling up. And I think we saw a lot of this during the pandemic, especially like with these swag packages, especially for like new hires or, new business and things like that, where you were putting together these packages that are really nice, actually, and, like I got one from a client kind of recently that had I'm not sure how to say it. I think it's a Pura or a Pura something. It's a plug-in like air freshener thing that plugs into the wall. You put little cartridges in it and it's Wi-Fi enabled and all this stuff. It came with that and one of these Stanley tumblers, it's a nice little thing, like to go buy it at retail, it's probably $40 or something, but they're not sending them to everybody, right? Like, so it's not the same model where it was like, give it to every person who passes our table. Instead, it's, hey, let's identify a few key people and let's send them this thing. And so would you say that, as far as like sort of gift giving and that sort of stuff goes, I mean, is that the trend? I mean, are people moving to maybe a little nicer, a little more high quality thing to stand out, but maybe identifying their customer a little more, or putting a little more work into knowing who they're giving it to?
100%. And that comes with there being a lot more automation within the space. So the problem with doing this in the past is it's very complicated to create, a lot of small batch merchandise and then assemble that merchandise and then distribute that to the right people and filter who gets what, right? But nowadays, so we have a kind of automated swag solution, and what that looks like is, we're fully integrated with like Salesforce, HubSpot, Workday, and we're able to pull all the different data from that. And when a deal moves from one stage to another stage, depending on the type of client it is and the certain tags, can know to auto deploy, a certain swag pack to that person. Also, with that, there was also abilities for people to choose their own merchandise. So then you can auto distribute gift cards for like a specific collection, and then let people kind of pick from, based on their budget allocations. And then all that ties in right with the CRM. So now you have metrics on, this client this person was a prospect, and we gifted we tested half the prospects we send a gift box to, half the prospects we don't give a gift box to. But the series B that we sent gift box to, we saw an extra 30%, higher conversion rate for those people that got the gift box, and our cost basis on the gift box was X. Right. So now we have we have a ROAS metric. We have a return on ad spend, essentially. And now you have trackable metrics on a marketing campaign and a physical merchandise campaign, and brands can spend now a lot more on their merchandise because they know they're getting the ROI. In the past, it was, we're going to go give out pens, we're going to give out all these different items, and we have no way of knowing how well it's going to do. So on average, companies were taking about 10% of their marketing budget, sometimes less, and they're going to say, we're going to buy a bunch of merch, we're going to put it there, we're going to see where it goes. Now, with a lot of brands having a hard time, interacting with consumers, getting harder and harder in sales process, getting harder and harder to run ads, right, and get that positive ROAS, we're seeing a lot of brands move over to more of a physical marketing approach because they're seeing the positive return on investment.
Yeah, no, it's funny how like sort of what's old is new and what's new is old again, right? I mean, like just, doing the human version of this, which is, we're taking some time to identify who our customer is and we're investing in that customer relationship. I think, it's an obvious thing, but I think there was sort of this window of time where we got sort of taken with, online advertising and Facebook ads and all this stuff. And not to say they don't still have their place, but I think there was this moment where a lot of marketers were just putting money into those things as a way to be hands off. Like we get good data, we get good, metrics, we get all this stuff that we can look at and share with our clients that make it look like we're doing a lot. And we don't really have to go talk to anybody. We can just kind of do it from the comfort of our desk. And I think that led to a lot of sort of disassociation between companies and brands and their customers. And so it seems like there's been a big push, to try and get a little more human again. And I think, again, I mentioned before, but I think sort of the pandemic time period when companies were having to do a lot of their wooing by remote, they weren't able to just, wine and dine people over dinner or whatever, but you were seeing a big influx in companies that were sending out these really cool swag boxes and all kinds of things. There was another one I got during that period where a company I work with sent over a little movie projector and a popcorn bucket and all this stuff, so you could have basically a movie night in your backyard. And, and I mean, but it was really cool, but it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for like sort of this pandemic situation where people felt like they had to try and put in a little extra effort to get personal. And so I think that, if anything positive came out of that, it seems like, this approach or this, shifting, evolving approach into going back to really one-on-one relationships with customers that you're trying to win, I think is ultimately going to be better for the consumers, but I think it's also better for the companies.
100%. And it's not actually just corporate gifting. Corporate gifting was a huge aspect of it, but it was also internally for employees, right? You had all these employees who were in the office, and there's certain culture and energy about being in the office. And now you're moving everyone remote, right? How do you keep that culture alive? How do people, who are sitting at home really feel connected to the brand? So that's where we saw, a huge growth as well within swag, more personalized swag, more swag distribution systems like what we have, right? Where employees can go and get single pieces of merchandise created and distributed anywhere in the world, right? So instead of swag being traditionally, right, you make 100 hoodies or whatever it is, you put in the stock room and then you hand them out for whatever reason. Nowadays, you can't do that, right? With all these global workforces and people working from home. So all these companies are moving over to these digital platforms to be able to effectively, distribute merchandise and build incentive programs. Like that's what our Workday integration is for, right? So when it's someone's birthday, they can automatically get deployed a piece of merchandise, and you can make, HR easy and try to keep morale high.
So I've been listening to the biography on Steve Jobs and his attention to detail and his just design aesthetic and ability to just get the coolest, latest, greatest, coolest thing, is next to none. And I'm at the point where he's building the iPod, and just the styling components and everything that goes into his thought process is really unique. When you're going and finding new products like the fan or whatever it is, are you going to China? Are you looking for stuff like that specifically for a client, or do you say, hey, this would work for a good product for the whole website and we'll just put it on there and I have a link here? Do you actually do custom shopping for specific clients at all?
Yeah, for sure. Last year I spent about 8 months traveling through Asia, building out new supply chains, and like I mentioned, Cambodia, Sri Lanka, Thailand, all over the world. And that was a lot for like our e-commerce customers as well. And then I just spent 3 weeks at the Canton Fair in China, Global Sources Fair, Hong Kong Electronics Show, and then phase 2 and 3 of the Canton Fair. So like I am physically on the ground, finding new products and doing what we can. But my best, the way that I find the best products, it's not necessarily like discovering like a new gadget necessarily, but it's looking at consumer trends within the retail market and then giving that opportunity to move into the promotional products market. So a perfect example of that is one of our biggest categories is athleisure. And things like, high-end yoga pants and yoga mats and these kinds of products. They're not currently available within the promotional products world and the supplier distributorship world. You go to the big promo conferences, you're not going to see these kinds of products. But they're very hot, and these big companies have these athletic events and they want to have these like more athleisure type products. So us being able to, we found some great suppliers that can do super high end, like $80 retail kind of yoga pants at 25-piece MOQs, right? So us being able to have that unique value proposition, offer that to our customers. And, we're not reinventing a yoga pant or a mat or any of those kinds of products, but we're taking something that's really hot for our generation and in the market and just moving it over to the corporate space.
I like that.
Yeah, it makes sense. So you started to talk about it a little bit. And so maybe we should talk about technology in this space, because I think that a big part of the advancement of, these types of products has come through sort of big moves in technology. And not just like, I think I heard you talking about on another podcast I was listening to prepare for this. You're talking about sort of like a selfie drone or something. So I'm not just saying only that kind of technology. But also, a big factor in your success is the ability to do print on demand. And so, and you've sort of tiptoed around it as we've been talking, but maybe we ought to spend a minute on print on demand and what that sort of, enables you to do, because for people who aren't familiar with it, and we've had some people on the show, we had the CMO of Printful and some of these other guys that do that kind of work on. But maybe let's talk a little bit about what print on demand sort of has enabled you to do with your business and how it's really sort of, I guess, poured fuel on your business in terms of a growth strategy.
Yeah, for sure. So, first off, I'll give a little rundown of what print on demand is for people who aren't super familiar with it. Print on demand is the technology for us to decorate blank goods at one piece. So when an order comes in, where instead of the polo being already embroidered sitting in the warehouse ready to ship, we're able to decorate that polo with whatever logo, whatever size and color that we need, and then ship that to the end customer. And with print on demand within the corporate, so print on demand has been booming, right, within the e-commerce space, but now it's been catching up within the promotional products and essentially like the corporate merchandising space. So what was happening was, first thing was like direct to garment t-shirts. And so it's like full color imprint t-shirts on like basic tees. And that was great for like people launching stores and launching like basic brands, but not super great for if you're like a company and you need to have a lot of merchandise and you want to have more name brands and big product variety. It wasn't really available. And now the technology is getting there and the solutions are getting there to be able to do, that embroidered polo or heat transferred hat or all these different products at one piece at not that much more expensive than doing it in bulk, especially when we're talking about, working with premium brands. Like if we're embroidering a Nike polo, and we're making 100 polos versus one polo, you're not going to see a huge price difference in it, because a lot of the cost basis of it is actually the blank that we're working with, right? So that's kind of like the overview, right? So how does this affect the industry, and how does this affect how people produce and distribute merchandise? Well, in the past, you had to make predictions over what people are going to want. So, CMOs and HR directors are going through every, quarter or year, and they're going and trying to pick out pretty basic items that they think are going to work for the whole company. They're going to go and buy those and put a bunch of stock in a warehouse, and then people are going to pick from a bunch of boring items, and the size is going to be off, and it's the brand might not be cool anymore, and the product might be a fidget spinner, and that's not cool anymore, right? So you have all this excess stock and waste, and then because there's a limited budget, there might only be like 10 products on the online swag store, or 20 products, right? Which is not a good buying experience. Now with on-demand printing and the ability to produce products at one piece, we offer 100,000 different products on demand. So you can have a large scale store with all kinds of brands, Nike, North Face, Adidas, Carhartt, etc., selfie drones, all these types of products available at one piece, living on the store, mocked up. But then when someone goes and it's their birthday and they get $100 to the store, that item that they're purchasing doesn't exist. It only is produced once it's ordered and then shipped out. And then you can combine this with the benefits of economies of scale. So you can still have inventory for some of the top items or the really popular stuff. But the selfie drone that, is a really cool thing to have on the store, but only gets ordered a few times a year, right? That would normally never be on a store. But now it has the ability to, and it can create a more personalized experience and give people the choice of what merchandise they want, which is also a huge issue within the industry, because when you go to a conference and get a bunch of swag you don't want, you throw it out, right? And that's just bad for the environment. That's bad for budgets. But if you give people the ability to actually pick a product that they're going to like, just like they're going to buy something on Amazon, they're probably not going to throw it out the next day. Same concept. So I'm really excited for how the industry is moving into, a bigger focus on print on demand, because I think it's making promotional products higher quality. It's making them more effective, and it's overall, it's making things more trackable because it's online, and it's reducing waste as a whole.
So the print on demand space back in the day wasn't that good, because you would get a t-shirt or whatever, and it'd be instead of a nice screen print, it'd be like the heat stuff, and it would come off and it would just be nasty. And the ability to have the same kind of margins is, cost, maybe $1 or $2 more for the one item that's high quality is next level, compared to, just going and getting the one off that's just a heat iron on kind of logo. And those are just horrible. And it's nice to have some quality and have it on the same day kind of thing. So props on that. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you if you had any thoughts about sort of this experience then. So like we talked earlier about how, corporate gifting has evolved, and you mentioned just now conferences. So if I'm going to a conference and I wanted to maybe try and apply some of these new principles, this idea that I'm going to have you get what you want, instead of me buying a bunch of inventory, or maybe I buy some cheap pens or whatever for to have at the conference booth. But like, have you seen how customers, your customers might use, I guess the type of strategies they might use to be able to customize that experience for the person who's stopping by their booth, for example? Like, I mean, are they setting up an iPad and letting you shop? What are they doing to actually apply this stuff?
Exactly. Yeah. So what's really cool about these kinds of solutions is it's not only making this entire process smoother and more effective, it's also giving metrics on how effective that trade show is as a whole. So what we see customers do is, they'll still be advertising they're giving away swag, right? But there might be a certain criteria and they'll have a couple samples of the items that they might give out. But someone might have to fill out, a form and qualify or whatever for the swag or enter the winner, that kind of stuff, right? And then once they fill it out or qualify or they talk to the right person, then they can go and potentially get, a QR code or a certain code or an access link or simply access to the iPad to pick out what they want. Now we still say that like that works great. And then maybe you could still have like one basic low, like, cool basic giveaway to drive more traffic and volume to the booth, and then have these higher end items that are more like with a little bit of a wall. So what this does is now people who are serious about getting the product, right now they're filling out all this information. Now you're building an entire lead list, right? And then you're getting trackability of these are all the people that all the leads we got, right? Now they're going to go and buy merchandise. They're going to get merchandise sent to them. Now we have more to call them, like the sales reps can now call and be like, hey man, saw you got the golf polo and you met James, blah, blah, blah. You're a big golf guy, blah, blah. We can go into a whole sales funnel with that. And then additionally, now you have entered into the CRM, right? The customer and where they came from, right? So now you have the trackability of like all these customers came from this conference, how much you spent on the conference, how much you spent on the merchandise. And then you can take all those costs and then you can look at your overall ROI metrics of the entire conference a lot more seamlessly. And that's the real beauty of it, right? And you don't have to bring boxes and boxes worth of crap to your event too.
Yeah, I like that. I like the fact that you can kind of use getting the product as the excuse to get the data. So like the address and the phone number and so on and so forth. It's like, hey, this is going to be coming your way. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, at the same time, you're getting them in your pipeline, which is great. So how does the integration with Salesforce go? Is it pretty seamless, or do you need a tech guy to set it up for you?
No, it's pretty seamless.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. I mean, like Mike said, the ability to get a person sort of in your pipeline almost instantly is really great. And I think it can also be sort of an incentive or a reason to talk, right? Like, oh, hey, by the way, here's this card, scan this thing, it's good for $50, go buy something. It'll be cool. Have you noticed with print on demand? So, I mean, we've been using print on demand in one of our businesses for a long time. All the way back to like Mike was describing with those horrible heat transfers they used to do in the old direct to garment stuff. But the way they do it now is actually, quite sophisticated. They use, basically what amount to like inkjet printers, but they're using real screen printing ink and things like that. So they're much more similar to what you would get in, in an environment where you ordered in bulk. And so the quality is so much better. But one of the problems, or at least that we've experienced, is sort of lead time on these things. Have you seen, just in that, instead of having it instantly or, like Amazon shipped in a couple of days, you're looking at a couple of weeks or something like that. And so I wonder, are you seeing any trends in print on demand generally? Are lead times getting shorter? Are products becoming more accessible? What are you seeing as an overall trend?
Yeah, I would say that lead times are getting shorter and shorter. Products are getting more accessible, and there's a couple of reasons why that's happening. So, when it comes to on demand, the thing that can create the longest production time has to do with where is the blank coming from. So when we're running a store and with 100,000 different products, right, and all these different options, we can't warehouse all those different goods at the same facilities that we're doing decoration. There's just too much SKU variety. So when someone orders that Nike Polo, a lot of times it's going to come from a warehouse that might be, you know, and all the shipments are grouped together, but it might take a few days for it to be, you know, shipped, picked, shipped, received, staged, right, ready to go. So that can create delays. Where we're seeing a shift is, you know, with print on demand, there's a lot of print on demand vendors that can do, you know, 24-hour turns, 48-hour turns, like 2 or 3 day turns, because they're utilizing their stock. And so the stock is a really good way to lower that timing. But now, because of the growth of on demand and because there's more automation in space and all this kind of stuff and more technology on the printing side, we're seeing like more and more suppliers, you know, hold stock of more promotional product type, you know, the polo and these kinds of pieces, where you can have available to a client, you know, these items are going to ship in 72 hours, right? But all these other items are going to take about 2 weeks. Right. So you need to get a polo to someone for the conference in, you know, 5 days or 7 days. You got to go with this basic one. I'm sorry. Or you should pre-purchase polos with us and we're going to stock those. And those are going to be like your stuff that's going to be instant ship and ready to go. You know, you're not as much in a rush. You have some more time. Great. Then the person can get the exact polo they're looking for.
So so as a client, if I wanted, you know, 100 shirts set aside in storage, ready to go, that's an option. I can go ahead.
So we call it like a hybrid program, right? So you have your top SKUs and like those items you want to ship quick and all that kind of stuff, as well as new hire kits and any of that kitting program that you guys were talking about earlier. You have that stocked and you have that blended in with your print on demand. So you can have like different collections or different options within your store.
Huh, that's really cool.
Super convenient versus, you know, keeping it in the stock room or sharing the janitor's closet or something. So, I mean, that works out pretty good. Hey, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, so you mentioned earlier sort of environmental considerations, you know, things that you're saving a lot of waste, you're saving, you know, not just financial waste, but, you know, the number of t-shirts going in the garbage. Can you also talk about some of sort of the ethical considerations? So, I mean, a lot of the products and things that we're buying, you know, that come print on demand, I mean, like everything in, you know, at least everything in this country is made in China. You know, I mean, so we're buying from all these different parts of the world that have different sort of, you know, cultures and, you know, some things are good and some things are bad. Is there anything that you guys are doing to, you know, I guess sort of ensure the quality of your products, you know, first and foremost, but also sort of make sure that these manufacturers or these suppliers are working ethically?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the biggest things is, you know, me or people from my team physically flying out and meeting and seeing the factories of, you know, almost everyone that we work with. That's a big piece. Working with established factories and have, you know, BSEI reports and all different, you know, third-party audited reports based off of, you know, sustainability as well as workers' rights and conditions and all that kind of stuff. If you know what to look for, you know how to kind of spot the bad apples, it's not very hard to. But you have to really know what you're looking for, right? And luckily, growing up in the factories and knowing what reports are BS or reports aren't, etc., helps with that. So yeah, that's a huge request. That's why a lot of companies come to us, is like, it's more than just like, hey, we need this X product, and we need to make sure it's sustainable, etc. Like, we can't just go on Alibaba and really necessarily do that. So that's, you know, definitely a big aspect of like, you know, how we can work. And then the other aspect from a sustainability standpoint, is it's a big issue is not necessarily in the promo space. And this is a little controversial. I don't think that it's a huge benefit from a sustainability standpoint when we're talking about, you know, this bag is made out of polyester and this bag is 100% hemp. What really matters is that person going to keep the bag? Because you could have literally a bag made out of straight fossil fuels, right? And like but if someone keeps it for 10 years and they use it consistently and it's their main bag, it's way more sustainable than those 100 bags that made out of hemp that someone used 2 times and it was ugly and it ripped and now it's in the landfill.
Yeah, I guess
that's an interesting point.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. You know, it's like the cheap product that you're given at the convention that just goes in the garbage as you're walking out the next garbage can you see, you just throw it away. If you get a product that is actually usable and someone will find it usable and keep it for the 10 years, like you say, that right there is a big difference in comparison to just the disposables or the throwaways. And I like that. So going after the quality products versus the cheap seems just to be the right move.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at least the hemp bags are compostable. So, I mean, at least, if they're going to be thrown away, at least they're going to break down, versus the other ones. But I think it is an amazing point to consider, is that, you really should be striving for something that people want to keep, right? I mean, ultimately from your business's standpoint, or, really, the whole reason for corporate giving is not just because we're nice guys and we want to give, but we want you to remember our brand and we want you to think about us when it's time for you to make a purchasing decision and that sort of thing. And if, like Mike's point, if I gave you a stress ball and you literally bounce it off the window into the garbage can on your way out, like, not very memorable experience. You're certainly not going to remember the squishy little ball we gave you. But,
well, Ryan, just an example right here. Do you still have the boxes to your iMacs and your iPads?
I keep all that junk.
That right there's the difference. Like if you get a box for a cheap little tablet for your kid, you're going to throw it away and keep the tablet. Whereas you buy a nice laptop, it's $3,000 and it's a very well built together box that comes with it. I have 4 of them sitting on the counter still, and it's just, you keep it because it's a nice product. Same.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, so much of it has to do with that perception, right? I mean, I have a stack of iPhone boxes around here. So it's like for generations old phones, that I don't even have the phone anymore, but I still have the box laying around. Yeah. So, I won't say it out loud, so my wife hears that, but there's still boxes everywhere. And so, but it's a great point, right? There's a lot of that kind of stuff, that you receive as a promotional item or whatever. But if it has this extra value to it, either because it's on a quality product or because it's thoughtful or interesting or whatever, like people keep stuff for a lot of different reasons. But it's, I think, a really good point, or something to consider anyway.
So we're kind of getting to that time. You want to tell people where they can get in touch with you, how they can find out more about your company, and potentially reach out if they're looking for some merch?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so we're Imprint Genius, imprintgenius.com. If you are interested in, kind of making lots of content, teaching people about how to source products, how to vet factories, how to kind of do this yourself, if you're interested in that as well, it's thesourcingguy.com, where I post most of that content, or at the sourcing guy on TikTok. But would love to help. Any of the audience members can definitely do some kind of promotion for, if anyone says they're coming from the podcast, give you guys, hundreds of dollars off your first order. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks. I wanted to just ask, I hate doing this after you've already given your plugs because it kind of screws up the cadence here. But I wanted to ask you one more thing. So I just wanted to ask, you mentioned integration with like CRMs and things like that, but could you do, do you guys integrate with like Shopify, things like that? Like how easy is it for me to actually get into the pipeline of using your products?
Yeah. So our app integrates with Shopify, and we have a Shopify app, but it's private. So what we do is we build when we're building a storefront for a company, we build it on Shopify for the brand. And then we manage it and we kind of do the A to Z. And then our app is integrated into the back end. So you get like the Shopify user experience with our supply chain in the back end. We have certain customers where it makes sense where we're integrating with their store, but for the most part, we really try to offer like a turnkey solution for these bigger companies that don't want to manage their own stores.
Is there a significant setup fee for that?
No. We charge when we build out stores, like a basic store without a ton of integrations, we charge about $500 a month, and that we built, that's kind of like what our store cost looks like. And our setup cost is $500. So we do the $500 for the first month, we build it within that month, and then you have a subscription fee after that.
Okay.
Cool.
At least at the time of this recording, that's what we charge.
Cool. All right. Well, for people who, got bumped by my interrupting of the plugs, once again, that's imprintgenius.com is where you go for the main business. Also, if you want to learn anything about doing some of this on your own, you can learn direct from the source at thesourcingguy.com. And man, thanks so much for doing this, Isaac. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And thanks so much to everybody who tunes in the show this week and every week. And see you guys next.